Coming as absolutely no surprise whatsoever, President Donald Trump has been acquitted, found not guilty in his impeachment trial in the United States Senate on both counts. Article 1 was abuse of power. Article 2 was obstruction of Congress. On that first article, 52 votes for not guilty, 48 votes for guilty. It was a party line vote, except for Utah Republican Mitt Romney, former governor of Massachusetts. Mitt Romney crossed party lines and voted guilty on Article 1. He made a speech in advance of the vote saying he planned to do so and explaining why. On Article 2, obstruction of Congress, a straight party line vote. 53 Republicans voting not guilty, 45 Democrats, and 2 independents, Bernie Sanders and Angus King, voting guilty. Party line vote, the outcome never in doubt. We knew that Republicans had prejudged. We heard from Mitch McConnell that he was going to be in total coordination with the White House on the impeachment trial. And Republicans made it a foregone conclusion that this was ultimately going to be the outcome. We knew this going in. A bogus trial. No witnesses. Imagine a trial in which you complain that you don't have firsthand witnesses, which Republicans did many times despite having them in the form of Alexander Vindman and others. And when John Bolton went public or his manuscript was leaked or he made it get leaked, whatever, we found out that he was a firsthand witness who could come forward and testify and say, Donald Trump told me to withhold the aid from Ukraine until such time that they publicly smear Joe Biden. They didn't have firsthand witnesses. They wanted them. One becomes available and they vote and say, we don't want witnesses. We don't need witnesses. The House could have called witnesses if they had wanted to. A completely bogus trial. Almost just a formality was the trial, despite 64 hours of proceedings, plus debate about whether to call witnesses, plus statements yesterday from dozens of senators before ultimately voting to acquit Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, the third president to be impeached by the House. All 3 of those presidents ultimately acquitted in the Senate. In the 1800s, it was Andrew Johnson. In the 1900s, it was Bill Clinton. And now in 2020, it is Donald Trump. So now the questions become, was this worth it? What's next? And what does this do for Donald Trump in terms of approval, in terms of November of 2020's election? We are going to talk about all of those things. Donald Trump yesterday, some Trumpists gleefully pointing out that Trump is now polling higher than ever in the Gallup presidential approval poll at 49%. We talked about this on the bonus show. Unfortunately, that lacks some context, which we will get to, including the fact that that was from before Trump's acquittal. Now, of course, we knew that once Trump was acquitted, what we are calling exoneration delusion would immediately take hold as soon as the acquittal took place. And it did. Donald Trump immediately tweeting, quote, I will be making a public statement tomorrow at 12 p.m. from the White House to discuss our country's victory on the impeachment hoax. You may already, by the time you watch or listen to today's show, know what it was that Donald Trump said during that presentation. If you are surprised by the acquittal, then you've simply not been paying attention. And I know that there are lots of people who are just busy with their lives and they don't pay attention, and that's okay. And in fact, I'm sort of envious of you to a great degree. During a number of our recent live streams, I would get super chats from people saying, hey, David, how likely do you think Trump gets convicted in the Senate? The answer was, of course, 0. So, or, 0.1, I don't know. We knew all along that it wasn't going to happen. So some in the audience, when I would point this out, were mad at me. And they would say, David, you are being a defeatist. Why are you calling it a foregone conclusion? We need to fight. But as I've said before, I tell you things as they are, not as I would like them to be. And there is no question that it was a sham trial. I told you that from the beginning. But at the same time, we have to recognize that there's no question that the last 72 hours have been really, really bad for Democrats. Just bad timing combined with fiascos. Monday night, embarrassing outcome in the first 2020 Democratic primary, which is the Iowa caucus. The app used to communicate results imploded. We, as of this recording, still don't have final results from Iowa. Tuesday night, Donald Trump does a total reality show State of the Union address, but Trumpists absolutely love it. They see Trump's idiocy as presidential. The stock market has several very good days in a row, and of course, we know, what does that mean for a rural Trumpist in Mississippi who has no shares of stock? Well, it doesn't matter if it means that their support for Donald Trump is reinvigorated. Then Tuesday, yes, Donald Trump's best approval rating ever in the Gallup presidential approval poll, despite his overall numbers not moving that much. And then yesterday, Donald Trump acquitted on both counts in impeachment. We've talked before about, was this Donald Trump's worst week ever for his presidency? This week was a very good week for Donald Trump. Individually, none of the things I just mentioned are actually exonerations or accomplishments by Donald Trump in any real sense. The Iowa situation has nothing to do with Trump. Trump's State of the Union was terrible in practice. Trump's acquittal was not an exoneration. In reality, it was a political majority having its way, as we knew they would from the beginning. But it doesn't look good for Democrats. And we need to recognize this if we want to keep fighting this the right way. And from a how does it feel perspective, which is often all that matters, it is very good for Donald Trump. So now it's time to win in November. There is the question, was impeachment worth it? And we polled our YouTube audience. We got 35,000 people voting in our poll. Was impeaching Donald Trump worthwhile, even though he's getting acquitted? 68% of you said, yes, it was the Democrats' constitutional duty to impeach. 2% said yes, because it was politically beneficial for Democrats. Very few people believing that this was politically beneficial for Democrats or that it will be. 16% of you said it was not worth it to impeach because it ended up benefiting Donald Trump politically. And then 8% said it was not worthwhile because it distracted from more important issues. That's a completely unscientific poll, merely of the YouTube audience that chose to participate, 35,000 votes. So we knew there'd be no other path forward. And now there is no other path forward. Yes, we're hearing the House of Representatives is planning to subpoena former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton anyway, to maybe get him on the record saying under oath, Trump came to me and said, withhold the Ukraine aid if and until Ukraine smears Joe Biden publicly. Trumpists won't care. Yes, the House of Representatives is looking at subpoenaing Lev Parnas, who has all sorts of audio, visual, and written recordings, written records of the things that Donald Trump was involved in, and so on and so forth. Trumpists are not going to care. So understand that the 2020 election, as I've been saying, at least since April of 2017, is both the only way, but also the 2020 election is in serious jeopardy. And we're going to dig into this more later today. Donald Trump now has 9 months to attempt and prepare almost any amount of election meddling, interference, and rigging that he wants. He has gotten off without any consequences for everything so far. Okay, some of his associates were arrested and found guilty and are going to spend some time in prison. He doesn't seem to care, and it may not impact his November of 2020 reelection whatsoever. He is emboldened. His followers are emboldened. So now, not only do we have to win in November, we have to win by so much that the meddling can't hand the election to Trump, that the foul play can't hand the election to Trump. And I'll get into more detail about that later, because I don't believe Donald Trump will go peacefully if he is defeated in November. These are potentially very dark days for our democracy coming up. And thinking ahead of us, these next 4 years could be much darker than the first 4 years. This is the reality of the U.S. in 2020. The world is laughing. People who care in the United States are not laughing. But this week, by any measure, it is a win for Donald Trump in the immediate, with the only possibility lurking 9 months away being that this is so inspiring to so many anti-Trump voters that they all get out in November and the tables turn. But it's going to require work, and we've got to do the work. And we're going to talk about that in much more detail coming up a little bit later today.